I'm Nancy Sheet of Sheet Communications. I'm very excited to be here with Kayleigh O'Keefe of Soul Excellence Publishing. Soul Excellence Publishing is a publisher of multi-author books and leadership books. And the reason we're excited to be talking to Kayleigh is she literally has this secret baby step of how you can kind of baby step your way into being an author. So I think it's something that people don't think about. They get overwhelmed, right, Kayleigh, of
Yep.
I really want to write a book. I don't know how to do it. And this model that you've created gives people an opportunity to get a taste of it. And this may be as far as they go, but tell me more about how it works, as well as kind of the ideal people to do this or try this approach, right?
Yeah. So I think what's really fascinating is that there's so much happening in the publishing world right now, where you are seeing lots of publishing houses like mine come onto the scene, because we are really hitting on this desire for people to share their story, to get published, but who don't have time to write their full book right now and don't want to spend the money that it actually, people think you're going to get paid all these advances. Like, that's gone way down. It's really not the way it works for most people
Right.
these days. So a lot of people have this desire, but it's really easy to push it away and say, someday I'll do this, one day I'll do this. And, I'm a type of person where I'm like, I don't want to wait for one day. Like, what can we do now? Like, let's do something today. So for the leaders that I work with, this first step of writing one chapter, 3,000 to 4,000 words on a topic that's, deeply touching to the person because they've said yes to the project. It is such a beautiful first step to get a message out into the world. It inspires confidence if I'm someone who can write and be published and share my story.
Right.
And naturally, people are like, wait, okay, if I can write one chapter, I can write that whole book. And so that's where we go next, of helping these leaders write their own books. And so it's this really natural process of getting a taste. All right, this was really fun. And it's way more fun to do it with other people. That's what I'm finding while working with my solo authors. Like, okay, we're kind of missing that, like,
the community.
the community. So we'll build that too in the business. But this type of model is really ideal for the person who's just, I want to get my story out there. I want to shift like for my company, it's, I want to shift the culture. I want to leave a legacy. I want to share a story that's never been said before. There's definitely a healing component to writing and putting yourself out there. And you'll find different publishing companies that really speak to, ones for women and birthing, mine's really for executives and entrepreneurs. So I want to say, if you have this desire, like, you're going to find that publishing house that's perfect for you and that offers opportunities to contribute in books that speak to you.
And that was going to be, I was like, of course you could call Kayleigh and work with her, right? But how does one, aside from you, what is somebody searching for? What do they look for? I mean, literally, multi-author books or community, or is there a database of people like you? Like, I'm just curious, I have seen approaches where it's like, you can be part of this book, but there's a big, huge dollar sign and the commitments. And I was like, it seemed, I'm going to be honest, it seemed a little bit sketchy, right? So I think I'm wanting, how do people find more of the Kayleighs in the world that it serves their purpose as much as it serves the publisher's purpose? Does that make sense?
It does. And, a lot of the publishing houses out there right now are really geared toward entrepreneurs, or basically to people who do have something to sell or offer on the back end. And so they're for sure a promotional tool. My audience is a little bit different, since they're in corporate, they have their jobs, they're not planning on leaving their jobs. Like, there's nothing that they're selling on the back end necessarily. And so that's just been interesting to note, of like working with VPs, like, what do they want? They want to be seen and be heard. There's a lot of places, largely on Facebook, where you can find, I don't know if you'd search for multi-author book, but it's searching for themes and things that you care about. And then you'll start to notice there's probably a publishing house that is kind of aligned to that. So I'm thinking of my friend Colleen. She owns a Wise Woman Book Collective. And so she brings together female publishers like myself, so that we're sort of seeing what other people are doing, learning from each other as publishers. So that's a pretty that's a good place too.
And I know there are writing communities where people share best practices, right? So
Yeah.
I know that also happens there. But let's give examples,
Yeah.
Kayleigh. What in terms of, we've talked about these, but so you went out with your first project last year. What was your first book that you published? Let's
Yeah.
do some bragging. What was the name of your first book? Show and tell.
So the first book was Leading Through the Pandemic: Unconventional Wisdom from Heartfelt Leaders. And I was inspired to set the vision for this book in like late August. And I just thought, the leaders are the ones among us that are always adapting and responding first. And so what did people out in the world, how did they have to change? How did they have to grow as a result of the pandemic, as the result of lockdowns, and what can we learn from them? So selfishly, I mean, as the CEO of the company, I'm creating books where it's like, I want to learn something. So I create a book and I learn from all these people, and it's amazing. So this book, I think we had 24 leaders from around the world. So Australia, US, and they all just shared their stories of personal growth and transformation. And we hit Amazon bestseller in Australia, in India, in the United States, in multiple categories, which was amazing, and really is the power of each of these leaders sharing their stories and sharing the book with their networks and building momentum and excitement around it. So I'm really, really proud of that book, and for the leaders in it, not just because of their titles, SVP levels, people who are managing 2,000 person teams across the globe.
Right.
Like, these are very accomplished individuals, and to see them, even with all that acclaim, to see them really struggle in the writing process and be able to support them through it was personally very, very rewarding.
Wow. And just to understand time frame, like, you wrote a book about leading the pandemic. The pandemic's only been around for a year. So what was your time frame from great idea to connecting with the leaders, getting their content, and the book coming out? What did that timeline look like?
So this might be my favorite thing about multi-author books, is that they can be so timely because of the timeline. So I was recruiting and searching for leaders like late September, October. And, they were basically writing November. Everything was due by mid-December, and we published January 16th.
Oh my
God.
God.
It was like 3 months, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So really nice, as opposed to 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, that you kind of, as you go more traditional, those timelines tend to go on. That's amazing.
So it just allows everyone to capitalize on the momentum and the energy, so when you start, you start writing and you're like, okay, I can put it off for a year. I can do it. Like, here, we're very much like, all right, now we're going for it. Like, yes, you're going to write this chapter in 4 weeks. And I know it's going to sound crazy to you, but it's totally possible. And let's help you get into the flow and access your message and work through any blocks that are coming up. Like, that's sort of the space holding part that I do for the leaders. Because it really doesn't take that long when you are tapped in and you have a message to share. And that's, for leading through the pandemic, for the leaders, it was like, oh gosh, which story do I share? There's so much that has happened. But yeah, it was a real quick timeline.
That's amazing. One quarter, you've gone from unpublished to published author. I love that.
Yeah.